So as we've been watching this testimony of a physician who treated Johnny Depp, an addiction specialist, I want to bring in from Dallas, Texas, former DOJ senior attorney and former federal prosecutor Tammy Allison joining us. Tammy, thanks so much for being with us. My first question for you is, as we're watching this testimony, which is not the most riveting compared to some of the other testimony we've seen during this trial, why is it important that the plaintiffs actually get out these details about how Johnny Depp had problems with addiction, which on its surface seems unfavorable to him?
Yes, it is. It seems unfavorable, but what it does, it sets the tone for the jury to understand the context into which these allegations arise from. Having these types of issues with addiction, especially in this country where we've talked about it a lot and as a society, and almost kind of normalized it without that bias and stigma affiliated with it, it's important to go into those details and the treatment that he sought so that the jury can hear it and listen, so that whenever they're hearing the other testimony that is actually very unfavorable to him, they're also thinking about this testimony.
I see. So when they hear testimony that, you know, he was under the influence of drugs or alcohol on a certain occasion, they're going to perhaps be a little more sympathetic to him, is what you're suggesting. I want to ask you also about the fact that there was a witness for the plaintiffs that was excused. There was that Gina Deuters, who was a friend of Johnny Depp and apparently somewhat to some extent of Amber Heard as well. And then at some point, the judge asked her if she had viewed some of the trial coverage, and she said she had. And then she was excused. It was ordered to be stricken from the record, but the jury, they've heard that already. So how does that impact this case going forward?
I think it could have a negative impact because what we like to see is like objections being made on the record. And what it does is it preserves it for an appeal. In case the verdict comes out to be unfavorable, the appellate process is also an option. But when a witness like this is stricken because they've viewed some of this testimony, witnesses are supposed to be sequestered, meaning they're not supposed to be listening to the trial or any of the other testimony that's been going on, so that their testimony is being fair and it is true and an honest assessment. When there's a witness that's saying that they've heard other testimony or they've been watching parts of the trial, what it does, not only does it reduce their credibility, but it also shows that they could make some statement on the stand that is favorable to one party or the other because they've already heard testimony. So a judge does not like that at all, and that's probably why the judge decided to strike that witness.
All right. Well, former DOJ senior attorney and former federal prosecutor Tammy Allison joining us. Thank you so much for your analysis, and of course, working